Good evening, everyone. I want to call the meeting to order. This is the Planning and Development Committee meeting of November 25th, 2013. We have a quorum. And the first item we have to deal with is approval of regular minutes from the November 11th meeting.
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
And we have one item for consideration tonight, P1, Resolution 64R13, extending time for the applicant to obtain a building permit to construct planned development located at 708 Church Street. We're going to start first with a brief presentation by our staff, just to make sure everyone knows what 708 Church is all about. And then we'll move to citizen comment. Thank you all for heeding the sign up. Those of you, we have the sign up sheet from the last meeting, so if you signed up at that meeting and chose not to speak, then you'll get a chance to speak tonight. So first, we're going to have Mr. Munzer, our Community Development Director.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mark Munzer, Director of Community Development. As discussed, we just wanted to provide a quick overview of what this specific plan development incorporated. And obviously what we're here for tonight is for you to approve or not approve an extension of this approved plan development. It was approved as 3208 on March 23rd of 2009. It was approved by council on a 6-3 vote. Its proposed building height is 385 feet, or about 35 floors. Where you see a maximum in parentheses, that would be the maximum permitted without site development allowances in the D3 zoning district, which this was rezoned to, this particular parcel. Proposed floor area ratio would be 15.14. The maximum in the D3 district is an 8 FAR, again, floor area ratio. Proposed 218 dwelling units, about 18,000 square feet of office and retail space on the ground floor. Proposed to have 271 off-street parking spaces. The PD, as it stands right now, expires on December 31st of this year. If the applicant were to pull permits and commence construction, they would have 30 months to complete the project. Plan development is also a special use, and we just wanted to note that it applies to a property, not to a specific developer or applicant. So if this were to be approved and extended, subsequent property owner would have the same deadline if it were to be extended. They are requesting an extension for 3 years to December 31st of 2016. And as the request must be approved by a 2/3 majority when it gets to City Council. Briefly, I don't know if we can make this out, but that is the site plan for the ground floor. To the left, if you're facing the screen, is Sherman, with Church to the north and Orienton to the east. The area in yellow, and I'm looking at the picture to the far right, is the retail and office space. I believe at the time the applicant had proposed about 12 different retail spaces to be located on the ground floor. And then off of Orienton would be the residential lobby, in addition to access to the parking garage and also access to the 2 loading berths, which were also a site development allowance to have just 2 loading berths. That is a rendering of the proposed project looking north from Sherman Avenue to the south. And that is another rendering showing the building imposed as it were to be built in the downtown area of Evanston, with Chicago obviously in the background. And then we also briefly wanted to supply some information on other plan developments of recent note. Since 2009, we've only had 2 new PDs approved. Those were the Walgreens and the Trader Joe's sites on Chicago Avenue. There are 3 proposed plan developments that are now in the pipeline under various levels of staff review for early to mid 2014. So what we're seeing is a renewed interest in development with the improvement of the economy. 2 of those proposed PDs are in the downtown area. There have been no new dwelling units approved as part of a plan development since 2009, or since when this particular plan development was approved. From 2003 to 2008, obviously the most heated part of the market, the City of Evanston saw 22 plan developments approved. Of those 22, 12, or a little bit more than a third, were granted extensions for various reasons. Of those 12 extensions, only one of those has yet to be completed, and that's the project called E2 at 1890 Maple, which, as many of you know, is currently under construction. Two of the extended PDs, E2, as I previously referenced, and 1717 Ridge, did bring a significant number of dwelling units into the downtown area, about 642 units. Also of note, even though it's not in the downtown, was the Amway development, also recently opened, which was 214 units for a total of about 856 units under approved plan developments. PDs are approved and extended for various reasons, but when looking at the plan development history, it was about 2 years was the average extension time. And then we just wanted to supply some information on building heights. Again, what is up for discussion tonight is not the building's height, but an extension of the plan development. But just as a matter of comparison, the plan development at 1720 Maple was 259 feet, Sherman Plaza approximately 236, Park Evanston 218. Of those PDs approved since 2009, the tallest is the E2 development at 165 feet. By methods of comparison, the Chase Tower, the tallest building, is at 277. So that's by way of background.
Thank you. There are some lights here. I don't know who came on first. Alderman Rainey.
Mark, could you tell us of the 12 plan developments with extensions? Were they pure and simple extensions as this request is, or were there some nuances also being requested?
Alderman, my understanding is that there were some nuances. There were some other issues, while some of them also were pure extensions. And you know I have to offer the caveat that I've only been here 3 months. But from in reading the list, that's what I've seen.
Right. I did a little more than read the list. I went into the minutes all the way back to, I don't know, I saw some minutes before 2006 because the agenda notations were pretty similar. It's sort of just a very routine statement on the agendas. In not one case of a pure extension, not one, was, regardless of whether the vote was unanimous or not, it is not for our staff to determine whether or not it's going to be a close call. It's, just give us the facts and let us, fight it out. Not one of the extensions, pure extensions, ever had a reference from our staff, any way, shape, or form, this is only for extensions, of the requirement of a 2/3 vote. Not one. If I missed one, I would really appreciate staff showing that to me, but I found it so unusual, having voted on so many extensions over the years, that we're being required to have a 2/3 vote. Now, the vote will be close, but that should have no bearing on our staff's recommendation that this be a 2/3 or not. Staff has even said that there is no codification in our code, zoning, rules, etc., requiring the 2/3 vote on an extension. Absolutely a 2/3 vote on a plan development being passed for the first time. Any changes to the plan, any of those issues, I have no quarrel with a 2/3 vote. If it's not codified, it should be. But this is simply an extension of all the work and time and effort already put into this particular issue. So I challenge the decision to do a 2/3 vote. And also, we just all have to be reminded that we're not voting on a tower tonight. We're really voting on extending and offering.
Audience, I'd really prefer
I'm
that.
expecting cat calls.
No,
doesn't
let's
bother
all-
me at all.
remain silent and
I
listen
think
to
that
each person.
the number of extensions that we've given, while we're not bound by that action, that to not give an extension in this case is really prejudicial and shows a lot of bias. We don't know if this project can be built. All the developer is asking us to do is to give them a shot at a couple of more years. Now, I know the lines are divided very clearly. There are those who absolutely hate the idea of extending this. There are some who don't really care, and then there are some who are very supportive of extending it and giving the developer an opportunity to come back, maybe with changes, maybe not. I mean, I have no idea. So that's my piece on this.
Thank you. Alderman Grover? Right now, we're up here. We have names down for citizen comment. There isn't, at the committee level, we don't have exchanges between the audience and members of the committee right now. So Alderman Grover?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to clarify that, Mr. Munzer, you had prepared this information and the presentation largely in response to a lot of the questions that you'd been getting over the last month or so about this extension request. So that's where it began, is some of us who were not on the council in 2009 had a lot of questions about where this began and so forth. And then I have more questions, but I'll wait till after citizen comment. Thank you.
All right. Alderman Fisk?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Munzer, I just wanted to clarify. Normally, a plan development is supposed to apply for building permit within a year, correct? And so really, at the time when this was approved in 2009, they really did get an extension of 4 years.
The plan development ordinance can contain an extended period of time, and they do often. But technically speaking, yes, it would be a year.
Has there been any other plan development that you're aware of that has gotten 5 years out of the box or 4 years out of the box?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Thank you. Alderman Rainey?
From the time this project originally came to our staff, I'm sorry, from the time this project originally came to our staff on a proposal, from how long did it take from that time to the time the council actually passed the approval of the plan development? Do you know?
I believe it was 2 years.
At least 2
Yeah.
years, yeah.
Application
Is that what
July.
happens with all plan developments? I don't think so, no. So, let's not do a tit for tat, because this was the longest dragged out plan development that I can ever remember. So it took a long time. And, have we ever denied the extension of a plan development?
No.
In the last, let's say, 5 years?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Now let's go to citizen comment. I'm going to start with the list. Can we turn the light back on, please?
Yes.
I'm going to start with the list that we had from the last meeting. Yes?
I'm wondering if we can ask a clarifying question before people make their comments, so we're all on the same page. There seems to be some discrepancy about whether we're voting on the tower itself today or not,
No, it's very clear. We're voting on the extension.
for them to build the tower as envisioned.
It's an extension of time for them to build, for them to start construction,
For them to apply for a construction permit.
for them to apply for a construction permit. That's correct.
One more question, please. If there has already been an approval of the plan, what are the chances that the construction permit will be denied?
No, I mean, the PUD has been approved, and what the next step is for any person who gets approval is to come in and submit their plans for building permits. And that's a matter of whether it meets our code for constructing a building. That's not that the building permit department does not have they can't deny something other than because perhaps they don't have the right number of fire escapes.
Or they don't get financing.
But that's not, the building permit doesn't,
They can't get a building, they can't build a building unless they get financing.
That's correct. All right.
And maybe it'll be a different building, we don't know. We're just extending the planned development.
Sorry, one more, I'm sorry to show my ignorance, but if they've already approved these, the ability to have the height, the types of setback changes, is there any going back on that at the construction?
No, absolutely not.
So in essence,
Tonight, we are looking at the sole issue of extending the time period for them to apply for building permits. All right, I'm going to go to the list now. Martin Cantor. And then I'm going to read a few other people's names so you can be prepared. The next four would be Bonnie O., Rita Morton, Lynn Grant, and Colette Taylor. Okay. When you come up, please state your name and your address.
Martin Cantor, 807 Davis. Obviously, I'm a resident of downtown Evanston. In the mid-'70s, I moved from Lincoln Park to southeast Evanston. I moved because at the end of my block in Lincoln Park, there was one mansion that got developed into twin 40-story towers. I moved to Evanston because I was moving to a college town. I was moving to a town where I could go downtown to Marshall Fields, to the Chandler Building, the shop. And at that time, I think the tallest building was either the Orrington Hotel or the Carlson Building. We all saw the aerial view of what this building looks like in the middle of downtown. To be blunt, it sticks out like a sore thumb. The people that live in downtown Evanston came here for a reason. It still maintains its small town nature. It maintains its college town nature. To put a building that is that massive on that site and that density for that site is a mistake. Obviously, it would have a negative impact on vehicle traffic on a street that's already experiencing heavy traffic. That construction on top of the recent Church and Davis Street construction would be devastating for the businesses that have been impacted and will be impacted. You talked about the project that's going on now, the Emerson Street, the Maple Oak project. That residential development, along with other recent residential developments, one of them happens to be Focus, a large rental, and the other one on Chicago Avenue, will absorb any demand for residential housing. And lastly, as an owner of 807 Davis, I'm aware of Focus Development's shoddy construction. Also, as an owner of 807 Davis, I'm aware of Focus Development lowballing the needed maintenance assessments and capital reserve costs, causing the necessity of a special assessment shortly after turning over the building to the condo association. Please consider my and other Evanston residents' interests and vote against this project. Thank you.
Bonnie O.
I hate the clapping.
I didn't get excuse me, Ms. O. I didn't get a chance to say this before, but our citizen comment is limited to 3 minutes a person, please.
3 minutes a person. Mine was a little longer than that. Okay. Because I'm a humanities person, I'm not very good at numbers and concrete stuff, but I'll try. Good evening, esteemed council members. My name is Bonnie O., resident of Evanston at 807 Davis, also known as Sherman Plaza, since 2007. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to address this body of distinguished public servants. I'm here accidentally, actually. I signed up the wrong sheet last time. I thought I was signing an attendance sheet and ended up here. In my nearly 60 years in the United States, this is the first time that I'm addressing a body like this. As I pondered about this evening, I thought about my father, who was a judge and a lawyer who passed away 45 years ago in Korea. He taught me that you do not shrink from challenges of righting the wrong if you could in any way help it. I believe this issue at hand is one of those situations, and I stand before you to appeal to you to vote against the extension of the focus plan of building a skyscraper higher than 35, possibly 50, I understand, stories in the middle of downtown Evanston. I oppose the construction, obviously, for personal reasons, but I want to go beyond my personal situation. As a friend of mine reminded me that a great view is not a birthright. But I'd like to appeal to you to consider preserving Evanston's beauty and its unique character as you vote tonight. I would like to implore you to reach deep down to your heart and guts and think about what the skyscraper will do to Evanston. Evanston is a home to a world-class elite university, a suburban city, a mix of single-family homes of various sizes, condominiums, rental buildings, retail shops of boutique nature, reminiscent of those small New England town, restaurants of all colors and stripes, and public entities of public library and post office. It almost be like building a skyscraper on the main street of Bar Harbor, Maine. Imagine that. Imagine what it will do to downtown Evanston. As Mr. Cantor said, we moved here from a Maryland suburb of Washington, D.C. in 2007. Although we had choices in Northern California and Southern Minnesota, we chose Evanston because it appeared to have a right combination of what we wanted. It is urban, but small enough for people of advancing age can navigate. As retired academics, we love the location for easy access to Northwestern University's concert halls, theaters, museums, as well as lecture halls, all within walking distance while my husband was still healthy, without congestion and traffic tie-ups.
Begin to wrap up,
I will
please.
finish pretty soon, but I want to say a little bit more. More than that, we immediately sensed an intangible quality about the city of Evanston. There was something in the air, intellectual vibrancy, progressive thinking, and of course, Midwestern charm and kindness of our new neighbors. But I think this skyscraper will create some intangible, tangible adversarial effects. One issue I'd like to mention is, of course, traffic congestion, as Mr. Cantor mentioned, and also terrific wind tunnel effect, which will have a terrible impact on small persons like me. And, I can be blown off. And I'm wondering if city is willing to pay for my, injuries. Anyway,
Ms. O,
I'd like to appeal to you
please
to
wrap
vote
up
against.
now. I really need you to wrap up because we have a number of other speakers.
I'm wrapping up, believe me.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to finish in the next 10 seconds.
Then I'm going to. So I think our situation is very analogous to legendary David and Goliath. And in situations, as Malcolm Gladwell mentioned, even David could have an improbable victory. And I'm appealing to you to preserve a beautiful city, and I sincerely hope we can keep it that way. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next is Rita Morton. I did want to let everyone know what the procedure is tonight. Ms. Morton, please come over. This is the Planning and Development Committee. We'll make a recommending vote to the City Council, which will be meeting later on this evening. And so we are not the final say. The city council is the final say on this issue. So I do want to let you all know that.
Thank you.
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Morton.
Good evening. My name is Rita Morton, and I live in a pleasant eighth floor apartment on the northwest corner of Davis and Sherman. My only windows face onto the proposed site of Sherman Avenue. If approval is granted for the developers to move forward constructing a 37-story tower, we will effectively lose the natural light from the east, and the tower would loom intrusively across the width of my apartment. So you see, I do have a vested interest. That building is, as I examined the zoning proposals, that building is in non-compliance to city zoning laws. It is far denser, and its height is excessive by zoning standards outlined by law as well. For example, A, dwelling units permitted are 96. The developer proposes 218, non-compliant. B, the number of parking spaces required is 399. The developer proposes 271. That is non-compliant. And the loading berths, according to the zoning application, must number 2 long and 5 short berths, but the proposal asks for 2 long and 0 short. That's non-compliant. This is a partial list of non-compliancy on the developer's part. There are on record filed by then Evanston's zoning administrator, Bill Dirkley, on February 2009. We raised our family in 50 years as homeowners in Lincolnwood, and we gladly settled here in Evanston, drawn to the lake, parks and beaches, the culture, the diversity, Northwestern University and other schools, students and activity choices for all ages, all of which add an enriched street scene. Mostly what drew me here was the livability of a vibrant community which brings one a sense of being part of a valued family. Pretentious overbuilding and inappropriate materialism doesn't draw attention here. In a historic city like ours, those aspects don't matter, because here we can feel the comfort of livability. I think we need to appreciate that livability. Each member of this dedicated board will be identified as appreciating what has been our predecessors' dedication to a fine city. Livability matters. Overbuilding doesn't solve problems. It usually brings destructive new ones.
Ms. Morton, I need you to
Evanston
wrap
and
up.
livability rock. Please vote for what truly matters. We, the people of Evanston. Thank you for giving me that time.
Thank you. Lynn Grant. And after Lynn Grant will be Colette Taylor. And then Lawrence Weinberg.
Good evening. My name is Lynn Grant, and I am a resident of 807 Davis Street. I've only been a resident here for about 15 months, but my family moved here because of the college community, the small downtown area. And of course, you have malls. You can jump on the train and go downtown Chicago if you really want to experience, high rises and big stores, shopping, and all of that. Being here only 15 months, because of the way the economy's been going in the past 2 or 3 years, we've noticed being here for the past 15 months, a lot of businesses seem to be suffering, and even in the past 6 months, I've noticed businesses going out of business in downtown Evanston. and a lot of vacant businesses downtown. So I'm really not sold on the idea of a high-rise going up across the street, whether it be condos or apartments, and opening up retailing space for those businesses. I mean, there are a lot of small businesses in the Evanston community that will probably go out of business if a lot of chain companies come to downtown Evanston. And I think a lot of people in the community appreciate the small local businesses that have been here for years and years, businesses like on Central Street and over on the west end of Evanston, and just the businesses around downtown Evanston. So I feel that there are a number of apartments that are new and established in Evanston that people can choose to live in. There are condos, and I don't see the need for another building going up and, being filled in maybe in the next, 8 or 10 years. So I don't think that it's a good idea.
Thank you. Next is Colette Taylor. Okay, thank you. Then we have Lawrence Weinberg. Okay, then is it Arthur Altman?
I spoke last week, but I have a couple of minutes.
Okay. And then after Mr. Altman is it Valley Lev? Okay, and then after Valley Lev is Hank Goldman. Okay.
Thanks for letting me speak again. A couple of things that I wanted to add is the aldermen should look into their hearts. Would they want this building built in their ward? Think of that. And think of all the citizens of Evanston, not just your ward. And if you really put that above everything, you'll realize that this is not a good idea. Also, this sets a precedent that this building exceeds the height limit. I know this was said before, but if you approve this, then when someone else comes along and wants to build a 50 or a 60-story building, they'll say, well, it's just a little bit taller. And before you know, we'll have another Willis Tower here. So I just don't think that's a good idea. And if you go down Church Street in the morning or late in the afternoon, there's plenty of traffic, and we don't need to add more cars to this mix. And so that's what I have to say. Thank you very much.
Alderman Holmes, your light was on.
Yes, Madam Chair. I'm just wondering if maybe you again could remind people that we're not talking about building this building. That's already passed, but that we're simply talking about an extension tonight. Because I hear you. I hear what you're saying, but that's not what we're discussing. I just want to make sure people really do understand that.
Okay. All right, Mr. Lev, and then we have Hank Goldman next.
My name is Vali Lev. I live at 807 Davis. And we're a couple of empty nesters who moved here about a year ago. We wanted to move to a condo in a downtown area of a North Shore city. We know that there are lots of condos in Chicago, but we didn't want Chicago. We wanted the North Shore. And there are two cities that have a nice downtown. One is Evanston, one is Highland Park. The decision was easy. In Evanston, there are so many condos on the market, and the prices are depressed. It hasn't changed. It's still the case. So we moved in Evanston. We're very pleased. The reason I bring it up is because at the same time that this extension request came up, was in the news an article about Highland Park city planners considering changes to the zoning rules, and what they were considering was to increase the maximum allowed number of floors in a building from 3 to 6. From 3 to 6. So we're considering here extension for a building of 35 floors. So I'm sure that councils of both cities have the interest of their residents at heart, not of any corporation or developer. But is there anything that Highland Park might know better that maybe we should figure out? Why are they thinking that 6 is maximum allowable? Would it be traffic? I'll give you an example. We tried to call a plumber, or I was at O'Hare, I tried to get a taxi. When I told them Evanston, there was a lot of complaining, traffic is bad, and so on. And this is before this additional building would be raised up. So clearly, this building will make the traffic worse. We heard about this. Clearly, will add to the glut of condos in here. There are many more, as we heard, being built. Approvals, maybe it's not recent, but more are being built. Prices for condos have recovered in many areas, but not in Evanston. So this is not a good idea from so many reasons. You've heard many. Maybe we should find out why Highland Park thinks 6 stories is the most that they would like in their downtown.
Right.
So,
thank you. All right, next is Hank Goldman. After Hank will be Katie Stahlcup, then Jean Lindwald. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Goldman.
Dear committee members and city council, my name is Hank Goldman. I reside at 807 Davis Street. I am speaking tonight in strong opposition to any extension for the developers at 708 Church Street. It seems like only yesterday, or maybe about 5 years ago, that many of us were here in these very same chambers debating the same proposal. After an unprecedented granting of 5 years to build, the same developers are coming back for an unprecedented 3-year extension. Their argument is that the city has given other developers extensions, so they deserve one. Truth be told, they were given the equivalent of an approval with numerous extensions the first time, so now it's time to close the books on a very bad deal for the city and its residents. The arguments for denying this extension are the same arguments for why it should not have been approved in the first place. Too big, too dense, creating havoc with the wind, disruption to the residents for a number of years, the displacement of many professionals on the second floor of that building, not to mention the retail establishments on the ground floor, which will all deprive the city of needed revenue. Lastly, if we think that the developers are doing this due to their love of Evanston, I've got a great big bridge in Brooklyn I'd like to sell you. Maybe they can develop that one too. The project is driven by pure profit motives and nothing else, and I urge this committee and the council tonight to deny the extension.
Thank you. Katie Stahlcup.
Hi, my name's Katie Stahlcup. I live at 144 Greenwood Street, and I'm here as a board member of the Southeast Evanston Association to read a statement by the SEA. The Southeast Evanston Association believes the proposed development at 708 Church Street does not address the many concerns of our community, and we believe that the deadline for starting this project should not be extended. Specifically, the developers request enormous zoning variances, far in excess of any that have been requested by other downtown Evanston projects. The proposed building will dwarf other structures in town. Its proposed size does not reflect the character and needs of the city of Evanston. The building only reflects the profit motive of the developers. The City Council should not be in the business of guaranteeing the profitability of individual projects. Instead, the City Council should focus on respecting and upholding the zoning ordinance. Number 2, the proposed development adds 218 dwelling units to the downtown area. Concerns about traffic flow and loading berths have not been addressed or ameliorated. Number 3, the proposed development provides less retail space than currently exists and no office space. SEA feels that this design will have a negative impact on the downtown community and the city's long-term economic health. And finally, the developers offer no real public benefits in exchange for the massive zoning allowances they are requesting. Contributions to the city's affordable housing fund are mandated by law and thus cannot be considered a benefit. In summary, the many problems with this development have not gone away. We urge the Planning and Development Committee to reject this project and reject the extension. It was a bad project in 2008. It is a bad project in 2013, and it will still be a bad project in 2016. Thank you.
Thank you. Jean Lindwall. And after Jean will be Glenn Gray. And I'll have to figure out this name. Go ahead, Jean.
Good evening. Jean Lindwall, 625 Library Place. The 708 Church is very different from other planned developments that have been approved in recent years. The argument that an extension should be granted because others have received them really doesn't stand up to careful scrutiny. Planned developments, as Mr. Munzer explained, typically have 1 year to begin construction. This one started with almost 5 years, and now an additional 3-year extension is being requested. When the City Council approved the 708 Church plan development originally, the developer was granted extraordinary site development allowances and exceptions, substantially exceeding those otherwise permitted. The council granted those exceptions on the basis of a long list of public benefits, the most notable of which was that the development was going to generate significant revenues for the Washington National Tax Increment Finance District. Even if they were to begin construction now, with the TIF expiring in approximately 2017 and 2018, there will be virtually no tax revenues going into that incremental tax fund, which really was a major benefit that was cited in the approval of the plan development. There are other public benefits that were promised and developer commitments that may be irrelevant by the time the developer is ready to proceed. For example, the developer committed at their expense to completely redo the Church, Orrington, and Sherman streetscapes. Church Street is done with the bike routes, bike paths, and Sherman and Orrington are both on the drawing board for the next couple of years, which again means that those benefits may not be really relevant in the overall scheme of things. Similarly, discussions are proceeding as to what to do with Fountain Square and redevelopment of that, which presumably the balance of the TIF funds will be programmed to accomplish. The developer is not proposing an amendment, which means that the city isn't in a position to renegotiate any of the terms or even to require that the developer update the revenue projections of what the city might expect to receive. I think, for those reasons, I really think that the city would be much better served by not extending this plan development. Should the developer be able to finance a project, he can always come back and reapply for something that hopefully makes better sense for the city and the other taxing districts. Thank you.
Thank you. Glenn Gray. Is Glenn Gray here? Okay. The next name looks like Guy Marcus at 807 Davis. Okay, all right, okay. Go ahead, Mr. Gray.
Thank you, distinguished members. My name's Glenn Gray. I live at 807 Davis Street. And I have a question, and the question starts with, why are we here? Why are all of us here today? And the answer is obvious. We all care. We care for our community, and we want it to be a better place for all of us. We know the initial zoning variation process was extremely controversial and very messy. Let me remind you, because many of you aldermen were not here during that time, a little bit about how it took place. 6 years ago, we were told about a magnificent, incredible redevelopment that was going to take place. If you saw these drawings, the illustrations, the new Fountain Square Memorial Park, a new flowing Fountain Square building, the Hahn Building being completely historically preserved and renovated, restaurants, outdoor cafes, trees, and abundant flowers. Sounds great. Who wouldn't be for that? That was the bait that was displayed in an illegal meeting behind closed doors to the alderman by Mr. Anderson. And what do we have today? We have the switch. An ugly, too tall, overly dense, with inadequate use and extremely poor streetscape design, and many, many other faults that many people have pointed out already. Oh, wait, I almost forgot. No new Memorial Fountain Square Park, no new Fountain Square building, no new renovation to the historic Hahn Building, no restaurants, no cafes, no flowing flowers. What we have is a good old bait and switch by Mr. Anderson. Let me ask, why would anyone want to approve a building that was designed 7 years ago, may not start construction for 3 more years, take 5 to 6 years to build? By the time people start using it, the building's design technology will be 15 to 16 years old. Is this how you show you really care about Evanston? Why are we here? For any of you that
I need you to wrap up.
For any of you that feel strongly that a new 708 Church Street is a good idea and essential for Evanston, then why not have a new modern design, a fantastic building that fits our current needs and uses for downtown Evanston with state-of-the-art technology, a truly gorgeous building? Simply ask Mr. Anderson to build a better building. That is all you have to do. Why are we here? Show us you care.
Mr. Gray, I do need you to end now. I'm sorry. But there is one. There is one, and it's part of our ordinance. Mr. Gray, can you just wrap up very rapidly, please? Because we have a lot more people's names on the list. Okay.
Okay, I will jump ahead. I am certainly naive in the area of community development, but I challenge those aldermen who are here for an extension to tell us why this building is good for Evanston. Why have we all heard already that we've already heard that it raises revenue, and we've already heard that we love our developers, we give them more time. Well, all development brings revenue, so why this one? Secondly, Mr. Anderson already suffers from excessive favorable treatment from the past city councils and has been extended the equivalent of 5 times longer than any normal development process. 5 times. To continue with additional extensions is incredible, reckless, ensuring that we will have the oldest new building in modern history.
Okay, Mr. Gray, I have to ask you to end now.
Vote against any extensions. Stop the tower.
All right.
Save Evanston.
Mr. Marcus.
My name's Guy Mandler. Sorry I couldn't spell it very well. 807 Davis. I'll be real quick. I second what a lot of people said already. And to Alderman Holmes's concerns, I'm not here to debate should we build. The question is, what should we build? And let's have transparency. And what is best for Evanston? What is, as Glenn was saying, why are we here? It's my understanding, my wife and I moved back after 15 years overseas. We went to Northwestern, beautiful community. We lived in Southeast Evanston at the time. Now we're in 807 Davis. And what is best for Evanston? I can't see a 35-story tower allegedly to be a condo, but once it's up and running, it could be, if they can't sell them, guess what? It's apartments. Do we want the biggest apartment building in the North Shore? I'm not so sure we do. But what is best for Evanston? What's the rush? As I understand that half the aldermen, if not more, were not on the board when this was approved. We need transparency in what's best. And what's the rush? They've had 5 years and they haven't done anything. All of a sudden there's 2 weeks to go and hello, they're back. I don't get it. I've only been here 12, 13 months, but I just don't understand. We need transparency like we do in all. It's a great city. It's the most, as I email a lot of you, if not all of you, it's the the most important parcel of land in the city. It's going to define the tone, the tenor for the next couple generations. Let's do it right. Something obviously has to go there. My preference would be an office building. Let's get some corporations down here and get real jobs and real money. So I ask you to please, please vote against it. Let's start over. What's the rush? If it's so great, they can come back.
Thank you. All right, next is Mike Vasilko. After Mike Vasilko is Alan Drebin, then Tom Snyder.
Good evening, Mike Vasilko, 2728 Reese Avenue, Evanston. I'm here urging the council to deny extending the amount of time given to this developer for the 708 Church Street high-rise. A building that tall is destructive to the character of Evanston's downtown. There's nothing iconic about the architecture of the proposed building. It is merely a monument to the developers. The Fountain Square and 708 Church Street block is sacred ground to many who know Evanston's history. The site should be reserved for a use that benefits all of Evanston, not just benefiting an out-of-town developer. A very serious concern remains whether or not the building of that height exceeds our fire department's ability and equipment resources to fight fires in a proposed multifamily high-rise building, especially one that tall. Buildings of this height require special fire equipment, special training for firemen, and special building infrastructure systems. It is a gamble and a risk to life safety if the right equipment and properly trained personnel are not available. No one has really addressed this concern. I need to remind the council of the questionable process that took place at the time when the downtown plan was being revised. The process was far from transparent and clearly skewed in favor of this development. By pure coincidence, the project was brought to the Plan Commission at the same time as the new zoning for the 708 Church Street site was being discussed as part of the downtown plan. I lost track of who was serving who. The so-called independent planning firm hired to serve Evanston seemingly knew exactly what the developers, architects needed. In large part, those leading our Plan Commission showed extreme favoritism towards this development. The three entities were very well coordinated. Please do the right thing and deny the request for an extension and thereby cleanse the record. Thank you.
Thank you. Alan Drebin.
I'm Alan Drebin. I live at 807 Davis Street. I'm a professor of accounting in the Kellogg School of Management, and I'd like 50 minutes to give a lecture on business. With
Could you give us the Cliff's Notes, please?
With only 3 minutes, I'll try to explain why this is a bad business decision for the city of Evanston. What we're doing here is giving Lotus Development, Focus Development, an option, and everybody knows what options are. Options are a heads I win, tails you lose proposition. So what happened is we gave them a 5-year ability to get a building permit, and the market hasn't been too good over the last 5 years, so they sat on their hands and didn't build anything. Now they want a 3-year extension at no cost. They're not promising to give us anything extra, but they're saying, okay, give us 3 more years, and then if the market turns around and things are favorable, they'll build. If it's not, then 3 years from now they'll be back, or else we'll just have the old building on our hands and nothing will happen. So it's essentially a heads they win, tails we lose, and that's not a good business proposition. I'd like to also talk about some of the things about prejudicial treatment that Alderman Rainey brought up. This is not just a tradition, it's actually an ordinance, and it's stated in this proposed ordinance, section 6-3-6-4D of the City Code provides that no planned development as a form of special use shall be valid for a period longer than 1 year, unless a longer time is granted by the City Council. Now, you have the ability to grant longer, However, if you're concerned, for example, this is only an extension of an ordinance that was passed 3 councils ago, this and 2 previous ones, and so we want to respect that council's decision. Why don't we respect the decision of the council that passed this ordinance? And in fact, we have other ordinances regarding the height of buildings in downtown and a number of units and a number of parking spaces. Those are all ordinances passed by the city council. Why don't we have respect for the past decisions of the city council? And I think that if we grant this, then what's going to happen is that Focus will have a stranglehold over the city, because any other developer that wants to come in and develop, they're going to say, gee, well, you know, we'd like to build something in Evanston, and apparently there are 2 applications so far. But, you know, there's this Focus for the next 3 years. They've got the ability to build this thing that's going to be so dominant, going to provide so many units that we can't possibly make a profit. So by granting this, you're going to actually discourage further development. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom Snyder. And after Tom is Ken Green and Lise Dahlman. Okay, go ahead.
Good evening. I'm Tom Snyder. I'm a long fan of Evanston. I graduated from Northwestern 51 years ago, and after I finished graduate school, I left the state, but I returned 5 years ago as a retired university administrator. I have a vested interest in the future of Evanston because I'm a marketing consultant, and I do tutoring of at-risk students here in Evanston. I do want to address the beginning of this meeting. We saw a slideshow that began with the sentence, "Let me give you a quick overview of what this is." And if you as council members and planning members needed just a quick overview, you can tell that this is a very complex issue. Talking to Tim Gray's point, this is a 7-year-old at least plan, and Evanston, due to your successes, have changed the environment of Evanston today such that really, can you defend all the impact studies that need to be done for a brand new building that aren't being done on this old one? Has the fire, police, traffic, parking, water, impact on vacancies of offices that are already here in the city, displacement of offices that are here, displacement of professionals, the wind shear, the wind tunneling? Can you answer all those questions in this short meeting with an overview that took maybe 3 minutes? I don't think so. I urge you to reject this rezoning request.
Thank you. Okay, next is Ken Green.
I have sat in your position for
Can you give us?
Yes. Ken Green, 522 Church Street, Evanston. Before I moved to Evanston in 2007 as a resident of the St. Louis area, I sat in your positions for well over 10 years as both an alderman, planning and zoning, and Board of Adjustment chairman. When I was faced with a situation like this and I was going to vote no, I looked for ways that precedents that would keep the city out of court or help us to defend. One, this approval that was given a few years back contained almost a record number of variances that you have strong reasons to say you do not want to continue those variances. Second, there was an election very shortly after the approval of this, and there was almost a cleansing of council, as I recall. I think the public has spoken to some extent on this. Somebody else brought up the issue of businesses going out, retail struggling. You've got a cloud over 708 Church Street and all of the shops that are there. I'm a retired banker. I wouldn't, anybody that came to me with a business plan that couldn't stay in a site for perhaps more than 2 years, I wouldn't finance their tenant improvements. I would say, it's a shoestring operation, and that's killing the city's revenue, tax revenues and sales tax. And now, not only did you give a longer period than anyone, in precedent before, but now they're asking for a longer extension period than any that has ever been granted. The average was 2, the typical is 1, and here they are asking for 3 on the heels of 5. And you put that cloud over those shops again. And again, who wants to rent in that situation? So I think you've got solid, precedent to say no to this and not have to fear that what the result may be in court. And I think you know what the attitude of the residents are.
Thank you. Okay. Next, I have someone from 1740 Ashland. Is it Lisa Dahlbaum? I'm sorry, I'm massacring your name. Okay.
So I'm Lisa Dahlbaum, and I live at 1740 Ashland, and I'm going to try really hard to stay on the extension, no extension, and not the building, no building question. I understand what we're trying to debate here. And I would argue that the timing of the initial approval put it right on top of the housing crash, which is unfortunate for the developer. However, that's how things are. And in the meantime, as we've seen tonight, more available units are now here. So the demand, if there was ever the demand for that, has gone down. There is no longer, if there was in fact, a need for this building. And so for that reason, I would encourage you, strongly encourage you to not extend this operation. Thanks.
Thank you. Next is Maria Mandler, and then Vicki Dudley.
I will not speak tonight.
Okay. Thank you. That concludes our citizen comment then. Mr. Reifman, did you want to say anything?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Nguyen, members of the committee. For the record, my name is David Reifman of DLA Piper. I represent the applicant along with my partner, Greg Grains. I'm going to begin by asking Tim Anderson to address the committee, and then I'll add a few additional comments.
Go ahead, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you.
Please, everyone, let's be respectful.
I think it'll be 3 minutes. I'm Tim Anderson. I'm the owner and the CEO of Focus Development. I want to thank you for considering our application to extend the 708 Church Street planned development. 17 years ago, I came to Evanston and started developing in Evanston. We started by buying a dormitory that Northwestern University had on Central Street. We demolished it. We returned it to the tax rolls by building condominiums there. In those 17 years, we've developed about 7 projects in Evanston. We've invested about $320 million, or the value of those projects is $320 million. And I think overall I stand behind our track record that we've been able to deliver quality projects to the city of Evanston. Most recently, we purchased a foreclosed hole in the ground on Ridge at 1717 Ridge from a bank, a developer that had gone bankrupt. We worked with the condo owners, we worked with the community, we worked with the aldermen and the council to develop a very fine project, which ended up resulting in the highest valued suburban apartment building anywhere in Chicagoland, ever. It's a lot of statement about Evanston. It's also a statement about the quality project that we delivered. Since the time the 708 Church Street planned development was approved, we've experienced the worst real estate crash since the Great Depression. No one ever expected that. Due to the downturn in the market, we need additional time to finish a project that was already approved by the City Council, in which they deemed to have public benefits to be desirable and in keeping with the PD ordinance and the variances that were granted. We'd like to be given the time to bring this project to fruition. We understand that any adjustments, if they're made to the plan, have to come back to you. They have to be approved by you. But I'm asking for your approval of the extension so we complete this project and the city can reap the public benefits that they were originally envisioned. Much of the testimony that you've heard from opponents tonight is about the merits of the project, not the extension. The merits of the project and the public benefits were already vetted and approved by the City Council. I appreciated the eloquence of Ms. O's comments about doing what's right and what's just. And I come to you with the identical request. I come before you to ask you to consider what is right and what's just about this extension. I'm asking that we be treated in the same way as other developers have that have had their PDs extended, some multiple times. We have made extensive investment in Evanston over 17 years. We've developed projects that have contributed considerably to the community, and I think we have a track record of developing excellent projects that bring quality to the city and are an asset to the community, and we want to be given the chance to do that again.
Thank you.
Thank you again, members of the committee. I'm not going to repeat the things Mr. Anderson said extremely eloquently, although I do think it's important to point out several issues that I think the committee and the City Council do need to address. First, I've been before the City Council on many extensions. Many of those plan development ordinances initially had longer periods of time, and I'm not aware of a single project for which the City Council has denied an extension in similar circumstances. As a result of extensions, numerous projects that otherwise would have lapsed have now been successfully undertaken or are in the process of being undertaken. For example, Central Street, Maple and Oak. Some of these projects received several extensions before they were able to be revised and implemented. This is the first extension request for this particular project. The other issue that I think is extremely important is the issue of the number of votes required. City staff has advised the City Council that a 2/3 vote is required for this extension. I am not aware of such a requirement ever having been imposed for an extension, nor am I aware of City staff ever having taken this position, and in fact, staff has never done so. The postures of extensions as presented to the City Council and as required by ordinance is nothing more than a typical approval. And for the first time, staff has seen fit to specifically call out in a staff memo that reading of 3 unrelated provisions is justification to require a 2/3 vote. I can go into this issue in tremendous detail. I think it's important enough that we need to talk about it, but the only place in the ordinance where a 2/3 vote is required is for a site development allowance, not for an extension. And in fact, the City Council rules call out specific cases where anything other. Alderman Nguyen, you're wincing. Would you?
No, I'm not wincing. I just want to bring up a point of order and the issue is I don't believe that the Planning and Development Committee that this is relevant to our decision.
So you'd
here
like to hold this conversation for City Council?
That's why
Fine.
I was indicating that I wanted you to pause.
Okay, thank you. I saw that you wanted to interject, so that's fine. I'd like to make sure, though, that we have sufficient time to address the issue at City Council.
That would be at City Council.
Thank you.
The question of the 2/3 vote.
Okay, well, in that, we would ask you again to recommend approval of a simple extension, as every other developer has received in Evanston. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right. Alderman Wilson.
Mr. Reefman, I did want to ask a couple of questions. The record, the ordinance developer is 700 Church LLC, which is an old LLC. It appears to be dissolved. Who's the current developer that's going to do the work?
700 Church Street LLC is an existing LLC, correct? Yes.
Okay, well, you need to get on that renewal then. But is it who's going to do the work? Focus Development?
Focus would be the lead developer. Yes.
In doing a little bit more research, I see that there's what appears to be a conveyance of the property from June of this year, 2013. Is that something you're aware of?
I'm not aware of that.
There was a deed from one trust to another trust. The document was prepared by Mark Muscat and recorded on June 12th.
So it's an internal.
It's internal.
It appears to be an internal transfer, Alderman.
Okay, but there was a transfer tax paid, though.
Those are entities that Mr. Anderson believes to be current ownership transfers. Why they were taxed could be
Okay, well, who owns the property?
the same owners who owned it at the time continue to own the property.
Okay, who owns the property? Who is that?
Do you have the name of the exact name of the ownership, Justin?
I have a trust number, but that doesn't tell me what entity or what person owns the property. But who owns the interest in the land trust? Who has the beneficial interest?
Tim, you want to come to the mic?
I'd have to look it up, but it's a land trust consisting of approximately 11 beneficiaries.
Of 11 beneficiaries?
That's correct.
Okay, are you one of the beneficiaries?
No.
Have the beneficiaries changed?
Yes, there's been a minor change of the beneficiaries within the ownership.
Okay, does Focus Development have any ownership interest in the property?
No.
Did Focus in a prior time have an interest in the property?
Contract purchaser, not an ownership.
Correct. It was a contingency.
Okay, do you still have a contract for purchase of the property?
We do not have a contract. We have an understanding with the ownership to reinstate the contract. It's in their best interest to extend the zoning.
Hold on, everyone. We're
right.
going to get,
Chairman Wynn, please.
hold on. Let's let Alderman Wilson continue, please.
Okay, I don't want to make this cross-examination. I'm a little puzzled. So, and you know what?
Please, everyone,
Everybody,
be quiet.
it's important to be respectful to the process, okay? Shouting out doesn't do any good, okay? And saying 3 minutes and things like that. The applicant is different than a member of the public who's coming to speak. The applicant has made the application. They're entitled to more than 3 minutes, so that's why they're here. So let's try to be respectful and mindful of the process. So I'm stepping on your toes. But
No, that's fine. Go ahead, Alderman
Okay,
Wilson.
we have an ordinance authorizing the LLC as a contract purchaser to develop the property.
Correct.
And somebody else owns it now.
Correct. No. The same ownership or a variation of that ownership owns it. Our client, the applicant, was always the contract purchaser at the time of the proceedings, as is not typical. They did so with the authorization of the owner to proceed with the application as a contingency to their obligation to move forward with the purchase. The current extension before you is with the knowledge of ownership to extend the plan development to keep it in place as under their authority, so to speak.
So the option to purchase has expired.
Correct. But under the conditions that Mr. Anderson described.
I guess I'm not clear on the conditions.
I believe the understanding is that if the matter is extended, the contract will be reinstated so that Focus can continue with the project and develop it.
And if Focus continues the project and develops it, who owns it?
Focus would ultimately purchase the project to develop it.
Okay.
Maybe you can tell me a little bit your concern. The structure we're discussing is not atypical of a situation where a contract purchaser comes in. Owners are not always the entities who are the applicants, but under the authority of the owner, they are.
The difficulty, as you've stressed yourself, what we're here to talk about is the extension, and people are very frustrated, myself included, with the fact that no visible progress has been made with the development of the property. And I think the the economics professor probably said it best. You know, it's really an economics question and a business decision, I think, that we have to be making. And, you know, there was this 5-year option. The ordinance, I'm not looking at it, but the ordinance granted the LLC as the contract purchaser with the rights to do these things. Presumably, the LLC would have had an option for 5 years. That was the duration of the, or a little less than 5 years, duration of the ordinance opportunity. So, I guess my concern is nothing's happened, and I don't have an assurance that something else is going to happen. Let me ask a different question.
Mm-hmm.
Alderman Rainey pointed out that this is just a straight extension, same project, just want more time to do the same project. I find it hard to picture a scenario where condos, 218 condo units are going to get built in this building. Does the developer intend to build a 218-unit condo building?
I think the way to answer this question, Alderman, is to note the way numerous extensions have come through the council. Time has been extended. The developer is in the process of reevaluating what the options are within the framework of the existing approval. If there are changes to that approval, if this project is buildable and developable in that time frame, the developer would consider taking that project forward. I think there is some desire to look and revisit market conditions to see if there are improvements or changes or tweaks that could be possible within the framework that has already been approved. If there were changes, as was done on Central Street, as was done at 2100, as was done on at 1717 Ridge, as was done at Oak and Emerson, those changes would come before the City Council, and the City Council would approve those changes. So at this point, the idea is to make this framework work for a development project of comparable magnitude, I guess would be the way of stating it.
Well, and to me, the operative aspect here is it's a planned development, and it's a component of a bigger overall plan. And there are other people interested in developing other parcels of property in the downtown area. And what happens here is relevant to what they decide to do or to not to do. And for 5 years, people who are interested in doing something else are kind of operating under this, I don't want to call it a cloud, but it's uncertainty. And I recognize that the market is what it is. I don't think it was that unforeseeable, when this was approved. But setting that all aside, it is what it is. But this was part of a plan, and the plan is not coming to fruition. So to me, it just seems that we need to devise a revised plan, which I'm okay with. A different plan is appropriate because we need to do something, but a straight extension for something that's probably not going to happen isn't a plan, and it ties up what we're doing or what we want to do or what other people want to do for the rest of the downtown.
But I guess without a straight extension, there's no opportunity to revisit the issue you're raising right now. And if I look at the issue of, if I look at the issue of Central Street as one example, a very specific plan was brought forward. That project fell upon the same circumstances that this project has. An extension was granted, and within that extension, a new project was developed. At 1881 Oak and 1890 Maple, extensions were granted, and in some cases numerous times. They came in originally as one plan, and that plan changed to something that is substantially similar to what was proposed on both, but nonetheless an evolved plan done within the framework of extensions with a new ordinance granted by the City Council. All of those projects had similar constraints, similar problems, and similar issues. And what we're asking for in this particular case is to be treated no differently, to see if there's the opportunity to develop this plan or to develop something within the framework of this plan development that the City Council, if it changes, would have the opportunity to review, just as was done in those other cases, Alderman.
I think that there were differences between those PUDs and this one. Very notably, this is the longest time period that we ever gave when the council approved a PUD. And those other twos that you were citing did not have a 5-year time period.
Actually, several of the ones.
And the extensions that were granted there were not 3 years in one lump sum. There were several extensions granted, but not a 3-year time period.
Actually, several were granted for 3 years. I think what the information showed is that there was an average of 2 years. And several of the PDs that I personally negotiated had longer time frames because the 1-year time frame was not sufficient.
They had longer, but they did not have 5 years.
One had 7 years, actually. But
which one was that?
Mather had 7 years. But they have not sought an extension. They were able to perform during that period of time. The point is that people came in with their best guess of the timeframes they would need to pull permits and move forward with the project. And in all those cases, an extension was granted. And again, the only reason we're here is that there was an unforeseeable crisis in the real estate market. Every single one of these projects suffered a similar fate. All of these projects have been back for extensions within the last 2 years, and all of them have had revived projects come forward in the last year or so. So all of them are on track as a result of a recovering market. This project, and especially this developer who was one of the people who came in and took a project that was an extreme problem and made it a model of a multifamily development, which I think everybody who drives by it would agree with, this is someone who deserves the benefit of that doubt.
Alderman Grover?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Who does own the property right now?
It's a land trust, the existing land trust, I believe. Do you know the name? If not, we can get you the
And
information.
is it the entire parcel, Mr. Reefman? Is it
Yes.
pretty much the parcel except for or including the Fountain Square area?
It doesn't include Fountain Square.
It does not include the Fountain Square building or the Hahn building. It includes a 29,000 square foot building where Radio Shack is located in that 708 church.
And do you have options on the other parcels?
No, we do not, and they were never they were not included in the PD approval.
In the PD, all right. Great, thank you very much. And by the way, I think we spoke, what was it, 2 weeks ago perhaps? And so thank you very much for spending the time with me on the phone to try to work through some of these issues about what has happened in the interim 5 years, these intervening 5 years, what has not happened in the intervening 5 years. I really appreciate your time with me 2 weeks ago. I agree that we shouldn't be tonight deliberating the merits of the plan development that was approved 5 years ago. So questions about traffic or design or wind tunnel or height or status of existing tenants, the residential supply, unit supply, construction quality, height limits, all that. Loading berths, it's really not part of the discussion. The question before us is whether to extend the extension of time. And the comments that I found helpful, I think most of the speakers, by the way, it's so nice to have so many new residents in Evanston. It sounds as if 708 Church or Davis is filled up, or 807 Davis is filled up with a lot of new residents who have come to Evanston for all the right reasons. We have indeed granted pretty routinely requests for extension of time on planned developments, multiple extensions of time, even retroactively. I think there was one that twice was retroactively approved for an extension of time, and we haven't denied any, at least in the time that I've been on the council and right previous to that. But then again, the original time frame for all of those was not 5 years. 5 years seems to be at the outer edges, as does this particular 3-year request, putting the entire length of time for the extension at the outer edges, about 8 years. And I'm working the numbers that it would be 3 more years to commence construction, plus the 30 years pursuant to the PD ordinance to complete construction. So we're looking at 5.5 years before this project is completed. And that's another long interval of time. And what's happened, in my estimation, in the 5 intervening years is not only have a couple of terms of the PD itself grown stale, some of those public benefit terms that I think one of the earlier speakers mentioned, but the landscape in downtown Evanston has changed, and the market and the circumstances in our downtown in Evanston have changed. We, notwithstanding one comment from a speaker, we don't have more vacancies in our downtown. We actually have fewer vacancies than we did 5 years ago. And I think our downtown is bustling and booming now, thanks to TIFs and so forth. And lots of good attention to how we manage development in our downtown. This is an extraordinary project, I think, by any measure. And it's an extraordinary parcel in Evanston. I don't think there's any disputing that this is prime real estate, and there will be some development there. I'm rather certain there will be, because of its location, everything about it that made it so attractive to focused development 7 years ago as the focus of their attention. But this is also an extraordinary request for time, and I think it requires really an extraordinary rationale as to why 3 years are needed to make this project come to life. Really 5.5 years for this project to come to life. And that's where I'm really most uncomfortable is in pushing the limits of this planned development beyond, I think, what we probably hoped and expected 5 years ago. And it would help me to know what's happened in those 5 years that make this project unworkable, where it seems to me the other extensions, the other planned developments to which we've granted extensions have either been constructed or are in construction now. And that itself is a signal to me that There is traction in the marketplace. There is financing available, perhaps not for this particular project at this moment, but I think it helps me to understand what has been the deterrent to taking those first steps to make this one happen within the 5 years.
Did you want a response from that?
No, I mean, if
All
anybody
right.
on the committee can help me, that's fine. A committee discussion, or we can take it to council, or.
Well, I also have another alderman who's on the
Yeah.
list. Alderman Fisk?
So those are my general comments.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, Alderman Grover, I can tell you a couple of things about the 708 Church building. And one of them was when this project came forward, just about the time we were all thinking about, or some of us were thinking about running for council. Everyone vacated the 708 Church building. All the Class B office space was vacated. Leases were not renewed. Leases were bought out. Everyone was gone. And that stood vacant for a while until it really appeared that this project was not going to move forward. And then the owners started writing new leases. And I'm a little bit uncomfortable with going forward with a project where, as I hear it now, if I'm understanding this correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you don't have any legal interest in the property right now. Is that correct? You are not the contract purchaser any longer?
That's true. However, we have the acknowledgement of the owners, which do have that legal ownership to proceed the same
And
way.
what is that? What form does that acknowledgement take?
The acknowledgement of the discussions with Tim as to what they'll do with the contract if this is extended.
Okay, so the ball is in your court then to go back to the owners, and they could easily say no. Is that also correct?
We have a working relationship, long-term working relationship with this ownership, and they understand the parameters under which we re-engage on the contract and that the extension is necessary to even contemplate that.
Well, why didn't the owners give you an extension on your contract to purchase, or did you not ask for one?
At the time, when the market took a drastic turn for the worse, there was not a point in going ahead and continuing to keep the contract open. However, we are the applicant for the zoning, and so at this point we said to the owner, it would be in the best interests of the ownership to extend the zoning and establish that framework, the PD, for any future development, and they agreed.
When they were writing new leases for the buildings, I understand that William Shoes has a new 5-year lease, relatively new 5-year lease. Were you consulted on the writing of those leases?
We understand what all the lease terminations are as it relates to, and Williams Shoe does not have a new 5-year lease. I believe it's.
Well, my understanding is they have a 5-year lease.
It doesn't go for 5 years from today. It does not. It's less than that. But we understand we have all the lease terminations, and we're well aware of them.
And what happens then if you're granted this 3-year lease? Do you automatically go back to the owners and say we're going to renew our negotiations with you, and we want to have lease terminations by what date? Do we go through this again?
We would re-engage the contract purchase on the property with the ownership, and then we would go through the planning process, which takes a while to get the planning process through to reestablish the project, so that at that point some of these leases are shorter term, some are longer, and we'd have to deal with that.
Okay, I don't feel and thank you. I appreciate your answers. I really don't feel comfortable in even going forward with this at all without an understanding that this property is actually continues to be for sale. My larger concerns are many that the citizens have expressed tonight. This building is totally out of date. Since the new council has come aboard, we have changed our economic development goals and strategies. Most of us are new, a majority of us are new on the council. This played a very large part in the discussion when most of us were running for alderman, and we were asked for our positions on the issue, and we made that part of our campaign platforms. As a private citizen, I saw just such large concerns with the amount of variances and that we were granting for this building, really unprecedented. I don't think it is a wise decision. I disagreed with what the council was deciding in 2009. I think it would be wrong to go ahead at this point with it. I think our design for the central block in downtown should be something that is consistent and in sync with our current development plans, but also is a building that is really a focal point for the future of downtown Evanston. And I think we really need to look at what we need to see in the building. I think the loss of the Class B office space, the loss of affordable retail, means that the people who are currently there that give so much character to our downtown will be totally displaced. A new building, I would hope, would contain some more Class B office space as well as some Class A office space, but also provide for some additional affordable retail, and I think that also could be a public benefit for a new building. I think a new building on the block is, as most everyone has said, is bound to happen, but I think if we all work together on a vision for that block with the developer, whether it's this developer or another developer, I think we'll achieve something that we can all be proud of, not just a building that is stuck on the end of the block that really doesn't serve anyone very well except for the developer.
Thank you. Alderman Tendon? And I have Alderman Grover.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Madam Chair. Please pardon my voice. It sort of comes and goes, and I'm trying to get through this. My biggest concern, I suppose, differentiation I make with this project is that it is downtown. Others have been on the perimeter of downtown or in completely different business districts. The downtown core, I think, is very susceptible to a project of this size, obviously, and in the indecision or unknowns of the past 5 years, extended 3 more years, I think could be very damaging if the unknown or the uncharted direction hasn't already hurt some of the development. So I do think that's some difference from the other planned developments. I did vote for those planned developments, obviously, extensions, and I think they were good votes at the time, but looking back at all of them as we have examined in this discussion, I don't see it so much as precedent as maybe a trend that we really need to look at, to re-examine if this is one of our best practices. I'm not sure that it is, and I think probably going forward, I will be much more reluctant to vote for extensions when there isn't really any sign of positive progress of any kind. So I do think we need to deny this request, and hopefully we can send that to council. I don't either. It doesn't matter what we do here, but we will vote at council.
All right, thank you. Alderman Grover.
If I may move to advance this to council without a recommendation from committee?
Second. Yeah, okay. All those...
So that we can really have this discussion with the full council, because that's where it counts.
Okay. All right, all those in favor of moving this to the council without recommendation, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, it will be moving to the council without recommendation. That is the end of our agenda. And so we will be adjourned, and the council meeting will be starting in approximately 10 minutes at 9 o'clock.